Recording.
Dosia.
Hey Dosia, this is Matt at Keystone.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Great.
Good.
And we're very appreciative of you taking the time today.
Hey, no problem, no problem.
So, what should we know? What questions should we ask? What information do we need?
Okay, well, are most of you have taken the BCBA exam?
Yes.
Or BCABA.
This is a totally different process.
Okay.
It is, there's no, like, multiple choice exam or anything like that. The NADD process is 100% competency-based. So it is completely an evaluation of your clinical skills as close to live as possible. There's the written part, and then there's the oral exam, and it all has 100% to do with case studies. So, for the written part, you are basically, once you get to that stage, because, you submit your vita, you submit your letters of reference,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you get to the written stage, basically at whatever timetable that you are able to do, that you're ready for, you submit a case study of about, I think mine was about 5 or 6 pages long. And basically, in that case summary, you are addressing each of the the 4 competency areas. So, one of them is positive behavioral support, or ABA. And then there's the other 5. And, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but, part of it is diagnostic assessment. And, are you up to speed on, accurate diagnosis? Are you using the DMID to make a diagnosis?
Mm-hmm.
The medication issues are very significant. You don't have to know medication to the level of a psychiatrist, but, general medication categories,
Yep.
appropriate, what's not appropriate for specific diagnoses, what are the major side effects and risks of, the major classes of medication, legal and ethical issues. There's a lot of people in NADD who practice in the adult world as opposed to the child world.
Right.
So, a lot of people have concerns about, whether or not a person's rights are being affected by the type of intervention that they're receiving, whether their rights are being protected in terms of them providing informed consent for treatment and informed consent for medication, whether or not, people are following best practices in terms of living environments and allowing adequate choice on the part of the individual in terms of where they live, with whom they live, and how they spend their day.
Yep.
So people are a minority in that, but we're there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what I'm missing. I'm driving, so I don't have my computer in front of me. But, basically your narrative should be like a case study of exactly what you did to assess and treat. But if you should flesh it out further to make sure that each of those 4 competency areas is evaluated.
Right.
So what we do as examiners is you get assigned 2 or 3 examiners, and each of us then reads your case study, and we have a Likert rating scale, of basically 0 to 3, and 2 is where you want to be. 2 is demonstrates competency in that area. So scores of 2 or 3 are what you want to be able to get certified.
Okay.
And the expectation is that, a person in their area of specialty will probably get a 3, but in areas where they're not expected to have a lot of knowledge, because that's just not something that you do on a routine basis, you want to at least be, competent in it. So you at least a
Right.
2. Yes, the vast majority of people who take the exam get a mix of 2 to 3 on the exam. I haven't had anybody who got lower than a 2. So after we rate, then if there is any missing information, the examiner will draft a list of questions, and then you get sort of a second chance to provide answers to those questions if any of them may impact your score in each of the competency areas. So if parts of it are incomplete, it's like your opportunity to provide the information that's missing, and then you get re-rated. And after you pass the written part, then your oral exam is scheduled. And the oral exam, there covers basically 2 areas. The first is your examiners can ask you anything about the case study that you submitted. So usually, we address kind of what-if type situations at that point. Well, what would you have done if, such and such had happened? Or what would you do if this intervention failed? Or what would you have done if people refused to implement this? Or what would you have done if the placement changed? Or if the medication side effects suddenly developed? That type of thing. So what-if questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of the oral exam, though, is spent on asking you questions about a written case study that you received 24 to 48 hours before the phone call or the interview is scheduled. So this time, NADD provides a case study, and it's usually about 2 pages long, and you would read through that and sort of you have your time to contemplate what are all the issues in the 6 competency areas that would arise in this case study, and then we would ask questions about your opinion about what about the medication issues in this case, what about physical health issues in this case, what about legal issues in this case.
Yep.
And then you are rated on the same rating scale in the 6 competency areas. And just as before, what you want is a score of 2 or 3 to pass. And in fact, you don't get a numerical score. You basically get a letter from NADD saying that you passed with your certificate.
Okay.
And any comments from your evaluators or your examiners that, may be pertinent or whatever.
Yep.
So basically, from the get-go, because, at first they review your vita, then you get, letters of reference from people in the field, and then they review your ability to conceptualize, via the written case evaluation, then they evaluate your ability to do it on the spot in the oral one.
Yep.
So it's definitely, I actually liked it better than the BCCA because, while the preparation that you do for the BCBA and the required experience is good, a lot of it's impacted by your ability to take a multiple choice test.
Right.
Yes.
And a lot of that is, doesn't necessarily translate into how good are your clinical skills in the moment. So I did not find it aversive at all when I took it, and I don't think I create aversive situations when I give it. So I think it's a very fair process. So I'm not sure what they put up there as recommended study strategies. So what are you guys doing?
We've reviewed the competency areas that they have online, which is not a lot of information. They do have some references to articles, but it's not a whole lot. So we've just been trying to take the competency areas and then kind of common sense pick out the parts that we know are important, that we think would be super important, and study those, familiarize ourselves with